So there's this massive uranium deal in the works between Canada and India, but this is about so much more than just a transaction. Seriously, it's a story packed with frozen relations, some serious geopolitical chess, and a huge bet on the future of nuclear energy. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's just start with the number because it is staggering. 2.8 billion US dollars. And get this isn't just some renewal of an old deal. Nope. Sources are saying this new agreement is about 8 times larger than the last one from 2015. That is a massive signal to the entire global energy market. But you gotta ask, what does this number really represent? When you're talking about two countries whose relationship pretty much hit rock bottom recently, a giant commercial deal like this starts to look a lot like a tool, maybe the price tag for a major diplomatic reset.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the handshake itself, the nitty-gritty of the deal. Then we'll get into the diplomatic deep freeze this is supposed to be thawing out. We're going to explore why India is so hungry for this fuel, what Canada gets out of it, touch on the controversy, and then zoom out to see how this whole thing changes the global uranium game.
Okay, first up, let's talk about that handshake. What's actually inside this landmark agreement?
The scale here is just immense. So who's involved? You've got Canada's uranium giant Cameco on one side and the government of India on the other. They've agreed to a 10-year deal to supply fuel for India's civilian nuclear reactors. And that long-term commitment, that's the key here. It provides a whole decade of predictable revenue and a stable supply. But look, this deal is not just about business. It's built on some really tense political history. To understand its true weight, you have to get the diplomatic ice it's trying to break. This relationship has been a total roller coaster. Things completely fell apart back in the 70s after India used Canadian tech to build a nuclear bomb. Things only started to get back on track in 2013, but then bam, September 2023 hits and we're in a deep freeze. The Canadian Prime Minister publicly accused India of being involved in killing a Canadian citizen. India, for its part, flatly rejected the accusation. So for this deal to come together just 2 years later under new leadership, that is a massive pivot.
So, you're probably wondering, with all that bad blood, why now? Well, from India's side of things, it is all about a huge strategic power play. I mean, they have to fuel a nation with incredible energy demands.
Think about this. India is running 25 nuclear reactors right now, with 6 more already under construction. And here's the kicker, many of them are actually based on a Canadian design. That structurally locks them into needing a reliable fuel supply from a partner, like Canada. Securing this uranium isn't just a good idea, it's a matter of national energy security.
Okay, so that's India's angle. What about the other side of the table? For Canada, this isn't just about selling a product. It's a strategic move to lock in revenue and really solidify its role as a key player on the global energy stage.
You can see how this is a clear win-win. India gets the energy security it desperately needs, and it can diversify its supply away from countries like Russia. Meanwhile, Canada gets a decade of predictable cash for a key industry and boosts its global standing. It's a perfect match, at least on paper.
But of course, a deal this big, with this much baggage, it is never that simple. It's been met with both huge praise and a lot of controversy. So let's take a look at both sides. From the corporate perspective, the logic here is crystal clear. For a company like Cameco, this is all about meeting market demand and locking in long-term growth. It's just business. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's what Cameco's CEO, Tim Gitzel, had to say. He basically sees a booming future for nuclear energy. All the geopolitical uncertainty is pushing countries to prioritize their energy security, which puts nuclear power in what he calls a durable growth mode. For them, this deal is just plain smart business. Okay, so the business case seems solid, right? But out in the real world, in the court of public opinion, well, that old history casts a really long shadow. This comment from a public forum just nails that feeling. There's this lingering sense that India betrayed Canada's trust way back in the 70s, and for some people, that history is just impossible to overlook. It brings up a lot of questions about trust and what this deal really means.
But then you get the other side, the really pragmatic counter-argument. Look, India is building these reactors. They need uranium. If Canada doesn't sell it to them, someone else will. Maybe Russia, maybe Kazakhstan. And that raises a pretty crucial question. Isn't it better to be the one at the table maintaining some influence instead of just letting a competitor take over the market? And that brings us perfectly to the bigger picture here, the global uranium game. Because a deal this huge sends ripples far, far beyond just Canada and India. To really get why this is so important, we need to talk about something called a long-term contract. Now, I know it sounds a little dry, but stick with me. Instead of just buying uranium on the open market, this is like locking in a price for years. It protects the buyer, India, from prices suddenly going through the roof. And it protects the seller, Cameco, from the market crashing. It's all about creating stability.
So check this out. This table, based on Cameco's own data, breaks it down perfectly. Let's say the market price for uranium is low, maybe $40 a pound. Well, this contract makes sure Cameco still gets a higher, more stable price. But if the market goes crazy and the price skyrockets to $120, that same contract protects India from the surge, letting them buy it for way less. See, that stability is the bedrock of the entire nuclear fuel industry.
So what's the global ripple effect? Well, first, it signals massive long-term demand from a major growing economy. That takes a huge chunk of the world's uranium supply off the open market for a whole decade. With supply getting tighter, you can bet other countries are going to feel the pressure to lock in their own long-term deals. It basically reinforces this global scramble to secure and diversify energy supplies.
Which leaves us with this one last big thought. A $2.8 billion contract is a powerful reason to cooperate. It basically hardwires these two economies together for the next 10 years. But given the deep political tensions and the ghosts of the past, the really big question remains, can business truly be stronger than history?